Hey, everyone. Good evening. It's Naomi Wolf, and I'm very excited to be appearing tonight in the second of a new Substack Live show of mine. So it's the podcast Outspoken, but on Substack Live. So reaching whole new audiences and with new technology. And we're really honored and delighted to be selected by Substack to be part of their Substack Live lineup. So it's every Wednesday night at 7. If that changes, we'll let you know. And just tune in. We've got so much to talk about. And this episode should pretty much be called, let's just face it, they're trying to kill us off. Right? I mean, I don't know how to start out any more diplomatically than that. What is obvious with 3 news stories I'm going to bring to you and take apart with you is we can't be in denial anymore. You know, we grew up in a world in which humanity was sovereign. The survival of humanity wasn't something you had to justify or argue for. It was everyone agreed. You know, they didn't have to agree because the basis of our behavior as human beings, that human beings were valuable, really the kind of measure of the universe from a human perspective. And all organizations, all laws, except completely deviant ones like in Nazi Germany, all healthcare policy was understood to be advancing the survival and flourishing of human beings. It's certainly for the last 150 years. And if it didn't, if it fell short, and of course it did, right? Like, you know, 15-hour work weeks and child labor and clitoridectomy and, you know, all the horrible things that humans do to humans. There were, at least in the West, there have been challenges to that. So the baseline belief system, the matrix of our understanding as Western humans, I'll just put it that way because I can't speak for, you know, Sharia law and autocracies in North Korea and so on. But the Western understanding is that humans are valuable, the most valuable of, you know, of all sentient beings. And humans have dignity and they have rights. And, you know, very fundamentally, even more, so much more fundamentally that, again, we never had to talk about it or surface it as a point of discussion. Society should be organized to optimize the survival and well-being of humans. Well, those days are over in the West. And I say this because there are 3, you know, new points of evidence. I'm going to say 4 that lead us, and I hate to be this person, right? But simply to have to conclude that a group of psycho-globalists who are really integrated in elite institutions throughout the West and throughout the world, they're not like in a bunker somewhere in Davos. They're on the board of Princeton, on the board of Yale, you know, on the board of General Electric, in the Department of Defense, in PBS, right? They are, especially in Silicon Valley, they are preparing for a genocided world. I'm just going to say it. They're preparing for a genocided world. So you all know, if you follow my work, that for the last 2.5 years, nearly 3 years, I've been concluding that the COVID-19 mRNA injection was a bioweapon designed to sterilize people and to reduce the population, and also to leave the population that didn't die dependent on pharma, you know, from childhood through old age and death, because their bodies were so messed up. And I've been saying it and saying it and saying it and saying it. And unfortunately, the chickens have come home to roost, as they say. You know, time has passed, and many people, like Dr. Tenpenny, for instance, and Dr. McCullough, Dr. Ely, Dr. Alexander, you know, many of these health freedom pioneers and heroes started saying very early on, like 2021, 2022, that the damage would become more and more apparent as time went on. And they're doctors and healers and scientists, and they understand that the kind of damage that the mRNA injections did, takes time to manifest. Some people, collapsed 15 minutes after being injected. Some people manifested horrible side effects within the first 6 months. A lot of people died. The Pfizer documents show 1,225 deaths within 3 months of the post-marketing rollout, meaning the experiment on all of us as living human beings that started in November 2020. And those are just the deaths that the doctors of those patients notified Pfizer about, because the doctors concluded that the vaccines were the cause of the death. Well, now more and more time has passed, and I have an update for you about that. The other thing I've been warning people about, and of course it got me deplatformed from Twitter. What was Twitter at that time? It got me, ostracized around the world. It destroyed my reputation to this day, right? X just settled an amount I can't disclose, but it was, an amount that was well worth it to pursue. Let's put it that way. Because they violated my First Amendment rights, including with the government I'd voted for, to suppress my voice when I was trying to warn about reproductive harms from the mRNA injection, trying to warn women especially. Well, the years have passed, and as I've been saying for years now, if you have menstrual problems in 2021, there are going to be fertility problems in 2024, 2025. And so now it's 2025, and that's what we're seeing. And I'll share that news story with you. And then lastly, I'm going to share a framework, the WHO treaty, which we thought had gone away, with the election of President Trump, but it hasn't gone away. It's back, like the end of, Fatal Attraction, when the Glenn Close character, you think she's dead, she's underwater, she's in the bathtub, and then she leaps up and she's not dead, right? That's what's happened to the WHO, World Health, World Pandemic Treaty. So let's start with the deaths. So there's a new study out that shows that Pfizer recipients face 37% higher risk of death than do Moderna recipients. And this is a really, very distinguished people conducted this study, to their credit. One thing that we really are missing is non-corrupted, objective studies using real science, the way science used to be understood and taught, as opposed to pharma-funded slapstick pretend studies, which is the kind of science we've had for the last few years, especially when it came to vaccines. But the two people who conducted this study are incredibly distinguished public health leaders, dissident public health leaders, but very distinguished nonetheless. It was led by MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Gretsev Levy, and Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo of Florida. So they convened this study, and it was a big study. I mean, a flaw of a lot of science in the last few years is that the samples are too small. For example, it was like 103 people that were studied to conclude that for Pfizer to conclude that you're more likely to be hospitalized and die if you're unvaccinated, and they had to hide the bodies of 8 vaccinated people who died with COVID in order to make the math work. If they hadn't hidden those bodies, they would have had to confess that you're more likely to be hospitalized and die with the vaccine than without. But those are the tiny sample sizes that you see when you dig a little bit and find out on what basis is big pharma saying, oh, miracle cure, 95%, you won't go to the hospital. Well, tiny sample and the math was wrong. But this is a real study with a real sample. And definitely put your comments and questions in the chat. But it was a study of 1.47 million Florida adults, 1.47 million Florida adults. So gigantic study, huge. I mean, that's like a significant percent of the Floridian population. And they found significantly higher all-cause cardiovascular and COVID-19 mortality after the Pfizer vaccination. And this is the distinguished Dr. Peter McCullough summarizing this study. And he's a cardiologist, so he deeply understands the details of this. And this was reported in thefocalpoints.com. And Dr. McCullough points out that Pfizer may have more efficient genetic code in 30 micrograms of mRNA compared to Moderna's 100 micrograms of mRNA, and that Florida residents have paid the price. Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf, and I have a message. President Trump is in the process of what he calls draining the swamp. But many in the MAGA movement and the MAHA movement are asking if he'll expose the entire pandemic. There's enough public evidence for people to be concerned who injected themselves in what has turned out to be a massive experiment. If you were compelled to get the shot for work, travel, maybe you just trusted the system, check out this natural solution formulated by hero Dr. Peter McCullough in collaboration with the wellness company. They just leveled up their original detox formula, and it costs $30 less. We are introducing the 3-in-1 Ultimate Spike Detox. It's now conveniently consolidated into a single capsule with 4 times more nattokinase, 500 milligrams of bromelain, and 500 milligrams of turmeric root extract. Nattokinase, an enzyme researched for its anti-clotting effects, may work to break down spike proteins. Combined with bromelain and curcumin, it provides a potent blend for detoxification and cellular support. Crafted with 100% natural ingredients, Ultimate Spike Detox is backed by research. It offers effective support for your cell's natural repair and recovery. Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. Peter McCullough, a top freedom-fighting doctor who risked it all to bring you the truth. Head over to dailyclouthealth.com and use the code DailyClout to get 10% off. Plus free shipping. Again, that's dailyclouthealth.com and use the code DailyClout to get 10% off and get back to that pre-COVID feeling of this. Well, that's pretty huge, 37% higher risk of death. That's like going back to the 19th century. That's like shaving years off of the average person's life. So that's concluded. And it's bad news, right? And it's a big deal, says Mark Palermo. He's absolutely right. Vonda, I am going to finish that story. I'm waiting for my husband to clear his calendar to tell me his version of the last part of that story so that I can conclude it, because it was his experience in the final third. But I promise I'll get back to it very soon. Now back to they're trying to kill you. Mark Palermo rightly says that's a big deal. It's a very big deal. I mean, one thing it means obviously is that these brands have different effects on people, but they're not different effects like one is more effective and the other doesn't do anything at healing, right? The different brands show that one is more effective at killing you and the other is not as effective at killing you. And what Dr. McCullough points out is that the penetration of Pfizer into the activity of human DNA is more efficient than Moderna's. And that's what he means by Floridians pay the price. Now add this to the picture of excess mortality around the world, but especially in vaccinated countries, that former BlackRock hedge fund manager Ed Dowd keeps presenting and presenting shockingly high numbers of excess deaths. Millions of people died in the last couple of years, more than the average number of people that normal statistics would predict would die. So people are dying. They're dying sooner than they would have, is the bottom line. People are dying younger, is the bottom line, right? That's what excess deaths mean. They're dying unexpectedly. They're dying in age groups that would not demographically have those rates of death. Okay, God, I'm such a downer. I hope you guys can forgive me. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. Just bear with me. And Mark Palermo says, when does the legacy media go with the story? Mark, please don't hold your breath. I've concluded they're just not going to go with this story. I mean, you are getting kind of, it's almost worse than total ignoring of the story or lying about the story, which was the case in legacy media for the last few years. There's horrible, kind of quisling-ish, pathetic, weaselly stories like drip, 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 what Robert Malone calls a limited hangout. I mean, I don't think it's as coordinated as that, but it's like the New York Times saying we were misled, or we got some things wrong about COVID because we were misled. I mean, nonsense, like nothing but nothing, no one's covering this. Like literally my life these days, you guys, seriously. I said this on Pastor Dave earlier today on His Glory. I literally have been airlifted. I'm so sorry. I literally have been airlifted in the last couple of months to the Netherlands and to Britain and to Iceland most recently, and to a ship that sailed from Barcelona to Southampton and stopped in Lisbon and Porto. And in those venues, people bring me to those countries, and I'm going to France in July, and I'm going to go to Germany in September, thankfully invited by MEP Christine Anderson. Why am I saying all of this? Because literally the censorship in these countries is so bad around this story, these facts, this issue, that journalists can't interview me. I can't go onto Skype or Zoom and do an appearance. The BBC won't talk to me. Paris Soir won't talk to me. Agence France Presse won't talk to me. The Toronto Star won't talk to me. And Rumble doesn't exist in a lot of these countries. And so, I'm sure Daily Clout doesn't make it through the censorship. So that technological censorship and the institutional censorship is so acute that literally people, who have somehow found War Room or, ordered the Pfizer papers or know what I'm saying, are reduced to physically putting me on a plane, flying me to a country, booking a lecture hall or a theater, and having me stand physically in front of 400 people to physically tell them what's happening, because that is literally the only way that the words can get spoken. And in terms of the cruise, which Mark Stein coordinated, some of the free speech dissidents I was sailing with are facing criminal charges or police showing up at their door in Britain for the words they are speaking. And we had to be on a ship, in the middle of the Mediterranean in order to even safely have these conversations. So it's honestly like being behind the Iron Curtain, except it's the free West, right? We're not allowed to have these conversations in many parts of the world. You should let me know in the comments where you're watching from. We'll see if France or Ireland or Britain or Germany or Canada or Australia can even hear me. We should be broadcasting all over the world. but who knows what kind of censorship we're really facing. But that's how bad it is. So that's a long way of saying, pardon my digression, to Mark Palermo, the legacy media is not just bought off. And I showed you that money flow in my last 2 books. They took the money to lie, but they're also now criminally complicit. They're criminally complicit. They participated in fraud and other really bad things. And so they were accessories to a mass murder. I mean, they just were, and it's an ongoing mass murder. So I suspect they're not covering it because their lawyers have told them not to cover it. You can't legally apologize for something you've done without jeopardizing yourself. And I think the lawyers have said, that's why the messaging in legacy media is, let's move on, let's put it behind us, let's put it behind us. Empress Shawnee Linus Grant says, a lot of people I know who took it, they're very ill, have serious health issues, and one of them is dead. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry. So many such stories. I mean, my own, circle of extended family and friends. So many people have what I know are vaccine injuries, but they don't know that they're vaccine injuries because the doctors won't tell them, or the doctors may not know. Autoimmune disorders, tachycardia, joint disorders, platelet problems, heart problems of all kinds, blood clots. You have to stay healthy and well at times like this. You know that I often have suffered from mobility issues, and now I don't. Part of my lifestyle is Native Path collagen. So Native Path's collagen formula is made with ingredients that are scientifically developed to increase bone mineral density, support tissue recovery, reduce wrinkles, enhance hair thickness, and strengthen nails. Who wouldn't want more collagen with all of these benefits? So right now, when you visit getnativepath.com/dailyclout, you can stock up on Native Path collagen for up to an incredible 45% off today, plus free shipping. Every order comes with a 365-day money-back guarantee. You can try it risk-free today. It is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners, and it's third-party tested for heavy metals, which makes sure that it is pure and safe. It's flavorless. You can add it to anything. I add it to my oatmeal. You can add it to coffee or smoothies. Its formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes without clumping. And the best part is Native Path is offering amazing bundle deals, 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, 8,000 5-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a trusted choice, and they offer an 800 number. You can ask any question. A real person is waiting to help. You can join a private Facebook community. I love these people. Share recipes, success stories. So that's getnativepath.com/dailyclout and start your experience of transformation today. I know what's wrong with them, but most of them can't get the information that I'm trying to share with all of you, and also the remedies that or the supports for your immune system that I'm also researching and trying to share with you. It just gets blocked. I got censored from X. I don't even know if you can see this on X. Let me know if you can. But I got frozen. I'm still intermittently locked out of X after I posted about DMSO, which is an incredible anti-inflammatory cure for many ills, very cheap, natural cure that, I'm not allowed to say cure, they'll arrest me, but a miraculous topical treatment, cheap, affordable, over the counter, that we're not allowed to talk about, and everything got frozen. It's been written about by Midwestern Doctor, a pseudonymous account on Substack. And literally after I posted that it helped heal my hip because I was barely able to walk, my account got frozen and I got kicked off for things like impersonation because I linked to a show on my own network, and said, watch this show. I mean, the persecution is relentless. And Empress Shani Linus Grant says, and people here are ignoring the fact that young, healthy people are dying daily. Exactly. It's a very scary thing to face if you don't know what to do. So let me move on. Let me move on to the updates that I can give you. And then as always, I want to, give you hope and some ideas about what to do and what to tell your loved ones. But those are the deaths. Now let me talk about the births. It's so bad, you guys. So this is on X earlier today, and it's breaking. Our fertility study is out now. Lower birth rates only among women vaccinated against COVID-19. A study of national data from the Czech Republic shows that the birth rate was approximately 30% lower among women vaccinated for COVID-19 compared to those that were not. I'm going to read this again because it's so shocking and mind-blowing before I tease it out. Our fertility study is now out. Lower birth rates only, that is not across the country for some reason having to do with the economy or environmental factors. Lower birth rates only among women vaccinated against COVID-19. So it's not women vaccinated with flu shots, women vaccinated against, HPV. It's only among women vaccinated against COVID-19. A study of national data, right, government data from the Czech Republic, a highly vaccinated country, shows that the birth rate was approximately 30% lower among women vaccinated for COVID-19 compared with those that were not. So, numbers of completed pregnancies were analyzed for about what, and I'm reading now this post from Vibeke Manike. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. It's a very important study. Everyone needs to know about this. Vibeke Manike posted numbers of completed pregnancies, meaning they came to term, the babies were born, were analyzed. Again, a big study for approximately 1.3 million women from the Czech Republic, aged 18 to 39 years. This is childbearing age years, of course, over a 27-month period. So that's over a timeline of more than 2 years. So again, it's not just a large sample, and the Czech Republic isn't that big a country. So like Florida, it's a chunk of the population was studied. And it's not just for 2 weeks. A lot of these bad studies, like the evil Shimabukuro study that said, oh, no problem with pregnancies, that the CDC used to persuade pregnant women to take the injection, that one went on for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, then they cut it off before any problems could develop. But these pregnancies were followed, and women were followed for 27 months. So from conception to birth, and then presumably the babies were followed as well. Groups were compared according to COVID-19 vaccination status at conception. The study identified a substantially lower birth rate for women vaccinated against COVID-19 before conception, which was only present among the group of women who were vaccinated. The monthly birth rate remained above 6 births per 1,000 women per month among non-vaccinated women and peaked at over 10 births per 1,000 women per month between August and September of 2021. However, from February 2022, once most Czech women had been vaccinated, the birth rate remained approximately 30% lower in the vaccinated group for at least a year out to March of 2023. And she analyzes it. She says this study is important because it is the first to analyze birth rate in relation to COVID-19 vaccination status at conception in a large national data set. That's so important. Everything has been anecdotal, or at best, Igor Chudov, a mathematician, very helpfully analyzing government data of live births. But that's a flawed way to get such important information. And we analyzed government, we Daily Clout, Amy Kelly, my COO, the War Room Daily Clout project director, she analyzed data from one province in Canada and found a drop in live births. When I was in Iceland, there's a tiny population, only 400,000 people in the whole country. And they were at 2.1 babies per couple, so at more than replacement before 2021. Then they went to 1.9 babies per couple, and now they're down to 1.5 babies per couple. So over time, if this continues, there will not be any more native Icelandic people. They will die out unless this trend reverses. And the Icelandic people have been, an intact demographic group for 1,000 years. Well, they've survived all this time, and they are going to die out unless they can bring the birth rate up. So this study is important. Okay, it's the first to analyze birth rate in relation to COVID-19 vaccination status at conception in a large national data set. So important. And again, that long timeline is so important. The findings provide a preliminary explanation for the sudden, unexpected, it's not unexpected, I've been yelling about this for 3 years, but persevering decline in birth rate seen in many countries with high rate of COVID-19 vaccination among the fertile population. The clear negative association that exists between COVID-19 vaccination status and birth rate warrants more detailed investigation, to say the least. And I want to share with you now, you can find this actual preprint. It's a scientific preprint. It's not a podcast. It's not a blog. It's not someone's personal opinion. It's a serious scientific write-up of a very big, very serious study. And kudos to the Czech Republic for, initiating and supporting this. It took a lot of officials to say yes, and they were the first to do this. So I want to acknowledge them. Rates of successful conceptions according to COVID-19 vaccination status, data from the Czech Republic. And again, one of those scientists is the one who wrote the post, Vibeke Manike, and it's also co-authored by Thomas Fürst, Max Schmeling, Jonathan Gilthorpe, and Peter Rees Hansen. And it belongs to a collection of preprints, and you can find it on preprints.org. Just look it up, or we'll post it in this video and in the chat, in the posts under the video when we're done with this podcast. So the abstract explains pretty much what I just explained to you. And it's an open access article, so anyone can see it. And it concludes that the rates of childbirth for the vaccinated group were generally much lower than expected based on their proportion of the total population. And so the conclusions of these scientists is, in the Czech Republic, SC rates, I'm not sure what SCs, here we are, successful conceptions. Successful conception rates were substantially lower for women vaccinated against COVID-19 before successful conception than for those who were not vaccinated. These hypothesis generating and preliminary results, they have to say that, right? And it's fair, it's just one study, call for further studies of the potential influence of COVID-19 vaccination on human fecundity and fertility. I mean, I just want to cry. It's just, so predictable. It's so predictable. It's so heartbreaking. Dr. Monica, I hope you are watching, or someone tells you that I'm covering this incredibly important preprint. And again, back to the question raised by Mark Palermo, how is this not a huge story? This is the biggest story in the world right now. It may be the biggest story in human history. Why do I say that? Because 30%, okay? Like never in modern written history has there been a drop in live births of that magnitude. Even when babies died women died in childbirth, babies died in childbirth, that drop, that change is unprecedented in the modern era, right? Even, in the 18th century, when many babies wouldn't survive till they were 5 years old, it was a steady mortality. This is a dramatic rise in mortality. Something's killing the babies, or something's preventing SC, right? Successful conception. Well, we know what's preventing successful conception. And honestly, I'm a little hurt that they didn't include me in tagging this preprint. This is something we've been working on and talking about. We broke this story, right, for 3 years. I'm going to say I broke this story. I was the first to say, and my whole life changed as a result, that were going to be fertility problems, or that women were having damage to their fertility. And every, the government itself, the United States government, and, Twitter and Facebook fell their full weight on me to silence me. Well, anyone knows that if women's menses are damaged, they're not going to be able to conceive well. They're not going to be able to bring a child to term. This is not rocket science. I mean, I feel like I say this over and over and over, but it's imagine being me, right? I'm not trying to be regarding, but this is so predictable, right? This is like a train coming down the track. And the train got noticed in 2021, and it's heading for a giant intersection where there are a bunch of women who want to have babies and families who want to reproduce. And I'm going, no, and anyone listening, universities, big pharma, the government, Twitter, Facebook, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal should have thought, is she right, or is she a crazy person? Let's look into this further. And then they should have said, no, something's wrong. And I've been telling you for 2.5 years now that there's a chart in the Pfizer documents that shows that they knew they were damaging women's fertility. There's an 8-page summary that they sent to the White House on April 20th, 2021, called the Pregnancy and Lactation Report, that shows that they knew the injection killed babies in utero. So I'm just going to reprise this. I feel like I spent my life describing this, but in the Pfizer papers, and we broke this story. So, academically, we really should get credit, while other academics are now building on our alerts, and it's not important for ego's purposes, but it's important historically. I mean, 3,500 volunteers tried to sound the alarm, working for 2.5 years for free. And they did sound the alarm. And now other people are looking. And thank God they're looking at last. But academically, you really should credit these volunteers. So let me tell you again what's in the Pfizer papers. It's a chart. It's a spreadsheet. And it shows damage to women's menstrual cycles in categories. This is Pfizer tracking it. And this document went to the FDA. The FDA said, great, awesome, roll it out, right? That's what happened. And it was these cells in a spreadsheet of, 15,000 women bleeding every day, 10,000 women bleeding twice a month, 7,500 women with no menstrual cycle at all, meaning they can't probably conceive at all. They're totally infertile. 6,000 women hemorrhaging, 5,000 women passing tissue, agonizing cramps, life-ruining cramps, passing tissue, right? I mean, there's something called uterine shedding, which has been happening to women who are vaccinated, where the lining of the uterus falls out of their bodies, okay? And then 10-year-old girls menstruating upon receiving the injection, 85-year-old women menstruating upon receiving the injection. They knew exactly what they were doing. And this was tens of thousands of women whose lives they'd ruined, or fertility they damaged or destroyed through menstrual damage, right? And this is 2021. And this is just out of their initial rollout. Now multiply that by billions of women. You're going to get millions of women with these kinds of menstrual problems or complete infertility. So now those women and women like that are having trouble conceiving, or even if they conceive, they're miscarrying at horrible, horrible rates. The Pfizer documents also showed in one section an 87% miscarriage rate. I was attacked around the world by Reuters, whose board member also sits on the board of Pfizer, for reporting that 44%, and this was an error in one of the volunteers' reports, of women had miscarried in the Pfizer documents. I issued a correction. The accurate number was 87%, right? 87%. Of 34 pregnancies, 26 babies were lost. And Pfizer lost the outcome of 236 pregnancies, which is illegal. So it could be even more. And then in the pregnancy and lactation report, which went to the White House and went to Dr. Rochelle Walensky, the most evil woman on earth. I'm going to say it again, the most evil woman on earth. Dr. Walensky, if there is justice in the world, I'm going to spend the rest of my days trying to get you standing in front of a jury of your peers or in front of a judge. You had your babies. And you saw this document. This went to you. It went to you on April 21st, 2021. And then on April 23rd, 2021, Dr. Walensky gave a White House press conference saying, there is no to pregnant women or women who want to get pregnant, there is no bad time to get your COVID shot before your pregnancy, while you're pregnant, or after your baby is born. She knew she was going to be damaging women. She knew she was going to be killing babies. And in the pregnancy and lactation report, there is a section in which 2 poor babies died in utero. They died before they could be born. And Pfizer concluded they died due to, quote unquote, maternal exposure to the vaccine. So they knew they were killing the babies, that the injection was killing the babies. This went to the White House, and Dr. Walensky told women to get this shot, told women who wanted to get pregnant to get this shot. Not only that, the pregnancy and lactation report has a chart of sick babies who can't nurse because their mom's breast milk is poisoned. Vaccinated mom's breast milk is poisoned with spike protein and lipid nanoparticles and polyethylene glycol. And so these poor babies, again, a chart, this many babies vomiting, this many babies have edema, which is swelling of the tissue. This many babies are feverish, and then one baby died of convulsions, multi-organ system failure, died from nursing his vaccinated mom. To this day, nobody has warned vaccinated moms not to breastfeed their babies, which is heartbreaking. You want to breastfeed your baby. You should breastfeed your baby. It is nature's greatest gift to women and babies that women can breastfeed. But no, Pfizer and other mRNA injections destroyed that. But now babies are in danger. You could murder your child by nursing, and they're not telling women. But Pfizer knew this. So, we've reported, I could go on and on the many ways in the Pfizer documents that conception is targeted. The lipid nanoparticles damage the placenta. And Dr. Thorpe also confirms this from his own practice. He showed me terrifying images of compromised placentas that prevents oxygen and nutrients from reaching the baby. And then two midwives independently in California, they don't work together, they don't know each other. I stress this because as a journalist, when two different sources say the same thing, two different independent sources say the same thing, it means that's a fact. And they both independently confirmed that the placentas they're seeing are abnormal in vaccinated women. And one of them sent me a photograph, and I'll never forget it. A healthy placenta is like cushiony and full of good blood vessels that bring nutrients and oxygen to the fetus, the baby. These placentas are flat and they're purplish or grayish, and they can't grow normally. They can't feed the baby normally. And so premature births are way up, and the risk of miscarriage, again, is way up because these placentas are compromised. The baby can't grow. And Dr. Thorpe is also seeing, and we don't have a study of this yet, but widespread chromosomal abnormalities in the babies that do survive. Pfizer knew, oh my God, it's so evil, that babies of vaccinated moms could be born with a gap between their lungs and their chest. So the babies get sent home looking fine, but then they're rushed to the hospital shortly thereafter because they can't breathe. They knew that this would happen, and it's happening. You know, people are reporting that this is happening to their babies or their grandchildren. I especially hear from grandparents, and I hear from grandparents because that's the age group. That's my age group, right? But that's the age group that watches War Room or watches the podcast that I'm on or subscribes to Daily Cloud or to Outspoken. And so they're trying to tell their grown children, their sons and daughters, and they're trying to tell, it's so heartbreaking, they're trying to tell their daughters-in-law. They're trying to tell their daughters-in-law, and it's such a minefield because the relationship of a mother-in-law with a daughter-in-law can be fraught anyway, and you don't want to intrude. But these grandmas and grandfathers are desperate to tell their daughters-in-law and their daughters, and they say that the younger generation just doesn't want to hear it, doesn't want to hear it, doesn't want to hear it. And then I hear these horrible stories from the grandmas and grandpas of, I tried to tell them they lost the baby, or I tried to tell them the baby came home and she's sick, or she's back in the ICU, or she can't breathe, or she has an autoimmune disorder, or he does. I mean, it's horrific. So now we know that there's a 30% difference in live births in successful conceptions, live births, between mRNA vaccinated, COVID vaccinated, and COVID unvaccinated women 18 to 39 years old. A 1.4 million, is it 1.4 or 1.3 million woman study out of the Czech Republic, conclusively showing horrific damage to human reproduction, to the next generation. A ton of dead babies. I don't know how else to say it. A ton of babies who died in utero, died upon being born, or were never successfully conceived. And again, look at that population of Czechoslovakia, like Iceland. If there's a 30% difference in live births over time, if it's a highly vaccinated country, there won't be any more Czechs, right? And you've got to put that trend side by side with the massive forced immigration that the same people who poisoned and sterilized and killed the babies of the Icelanders and the Czech people, same people who did that are forcibly shipping in. I don't know if the Czech Republic has the same challenge with immigrants that everywhere else in Europe does, but Iceland for sure, all of Western Europe for sure, Ireland for sure. They tried it in the United States and we elected President Trump, but that's the rare exception in the West. There's a demographic collapse a collapse of Western European and North American vaccinated populations. Shocking, shocking news. And I kind of don't want to leave it there, because now I want to go on to the last couple of points in my evidence. And again, this episode is, let's just face it, they're trying to kill us. I foolishly thought, it was hard enough to face that the COVID-19 vaccine was a genocidal effort. And then we kind of barely overcame that, right? No one's getting boosters. Excuse me, the word is kind of out, but the damage has been done. And the damage could have been done so effectively between these deaths, excess deaths, and the drop in live births, that it's not just Westerners who might be dying out. I'm sorry, I have to project this ahead in order to have us fight it, right? I hate being Cassandra, but that seems to be my karma. I just have to play this out. I thought, okay, there's going to be this dip, and hopefully humanity will recover. But what if humanity isn't going to recover? Right? Now, let's look at the announcement from Britain, the British government, that they're launching quote unquote experiments to dim the sun. Those of us who follow geoengineering know that this is nothing new. There have been programs to dim the sun since at least 2017, when I first started reporting on it. And these range from Bill Gates is behind a lot of this, right? Bill Gates invested in the vaccines. Who is Bill Gates? Is he just Satan? I mean, who is Bill Gates? Why is he always behind every genocidal thing that happens to humans? I don't even know. And Ry Davis says, dim the sun, another danger as people play with God activity. I'm paraphrasing him. But they're rolling out the announcement, and you can see the geoengineering. In Portugal, we saw it. In Spain, we saw it. Over Britain, you see it. Here in Brooklyn, upstate New York, you see it, 3 days out of 5. And weather patterns the sky is totally different from the way it used to be when the first 20 years of my life. Totally different. Younger people may not realize the difference, but it's totally different. And rather than anecdotally describing the sky, I'll tell you that the programs that I've confirmed primarily include multiple modalities. There's something called solar radiation management, which is coming out of a disgusting group of people called the Kreutz Group at Harvard. And the lead of that is Dr. David Keith. I may slightly be mispronouncing that name, but it's Dr. David Keith at Harvard. And he's funded by Intellectual Ventures, which is the huge venture capital firm out of Silicon Valley that funds all of big tech, right? And this is very much a big tech play, whatever else it is. And I'll tell you what the advantage is there in a minute. But they spray sulfates, which is pollution, into the air via a weather balloon. This is their model, right? It's very public. And they had an experiment to do this called ScopeX in 2017. And they had to launch their weather balloon near Arizona, by the way, from a Native American reservation because US law didn't allow for it. That's how messed up they are. They had to go to an area not governed by United States law because what they were about to do was so lawless, so illegal. And there was a horrible time, guys, when I was on Twitter and reporting on ScopeX and saying they're going over Arizona, they're launching out of Arizona, they've raised $20 million, it's happening. And I would also ask them, an evil Gernot Wagner, and both Dr. David Keith and Dr. Gernot Wagner are on Twitter, X. You can talk to them. You can tell them how you feel about their activities. You really should. Don't, threaten them with violence. Don't dox them, but you definitely should, use your freedom of speech. And you should tell Harvard how you feel. And especially, I always tagged the Harvard Alumni Association, because Harvard's alumni should know that Harvard is paying, subsidizing, and also benefiting from patents to dim the sun. But there was this horrible moment when a woman who was one of my followers in Arizona was showing me the sky, and it was horrific. It was like roiling satanic non-clouds, like this imponderable material, totally unnatural over Arizona. And she was saying, is this Scopex? And I said to Gernot Wagner, will you speak to her? This is all publicly on Twitter. Tell her if this is Scopex or not. She has a right to know. What have you put something over her house? This is the town. Like, just tell her. And he wouldn't speak to her. He followed me, or he knew what I was saying. He would respond to me. He wouldn't even speak to this woman whose house he may have been spraying. It was the most disgusting disdain for human beings by globalist elites I've ever seen, practically, in my whole career. Just seeing it play out, seeing this poor older lady just begging, just tell me, like begging, please stop. And Gernot Wagner of Harvard, I hope this reaches him, blithely ignoring her, and Dr. David Keith ignoring her, and ignoring people begging for it to stop, for them to stop spraying their homes and their pets and their children and their gardens and their vegetables. Horrific people. So that's one. There's a great deal of cloud seeding, which creates rain. Cloud seeding, all these euphemisms, and there's a great deal in Idaho, Montana, and all over Northern and Southern California. The reason this is important is cloud seeding has materials in it like aluminum, which makes fires burn hotter. So California, the same areas that actually PG&E was cloud seeding. Why was it PG&E? I'm not sure. Unless it's hydroelectric power, they need more water for the hydroelectric dams. I don't know, but it was PG&E cloud seeding, and a lot of farmers also cloud seeded, or ranches. In those areas in California, that's where the horrible forest fires were, the horrible wildfires. And there's other technologies. There's something called marine cloud brightening, where it's so gross, where the ship trails, the emissions from ship smokestacks, chemicals are added to them to make them not disperse, to make them dim the sun, essentially. Again, sulfates and other material that I don't know, but it's to basically use ship smokestacks to create a layer that dims the sun. And you can see it, right? The sky is white. The sky never used to be white without actual fog or actual clouds. But that's what they want. That's what the globalists want, is a white sky. That's what Bill Gates has talked about, a white sky, even when it's sunny. And nominally, this is about climate change, but I have other theories. And they go along with the drop in birth rate, rise in deaths. And this is the theme of this podcast today. They just want to kill us. Destroying farmland. If you know where to solar radiation management, and you can target, like on X, someone posted a UK shaped cloud over the UK, right? If you target a country, you can short the agriculture of that country on the stock exchange, right? So take risk out of your investments. But B, you can ram through policies that drive those people to be hopelessly dependent, because they can't raise their own food. They can no longer raise their own food. So they'll desperately do anything you say. Oh, do you want, to bring home a ration of flour and, sugar and meat to your children? Well, take this injection, or accept this digital currency, or whatever it is they want. They can get if people can't grow their own food. Growing your own food or getting food locally is the most fundamental independence human beings have. That'll end. And there's another reason, and then I want to go to my last point, but I only have 5 minutes, which is big tech invests in solar radiation management. Why? Well, one reason is big tech, as I've said before, about the race to digitize your body and the Internet of Things. They've run out of kind of functionalities and innovation in your computer. With software, there's only so much you can do inside your computer. So big tech is dying to digitize and patent and monetize the environment and your body, right? And so what is the thing? All this weather manipulation has patents. And so they're just racing to, basically ruin the sky so they can be the gatekeepers on, do you get to see the sun or do you get to have a crop? And other functionalities like weather warfare, obviously. But the last thing I want you to think about is why were main streets, cinemas, bowling alleys, playgrounds, closed during the pandemic, and everyone was told not to gather at bars and restaurants and to be inside so that you would be on your screens. And I wrote about this in The Bodies of Others. There was a 23% jump in net revenue for brands like Amazon and, Bloomberg and Microsoft and Facebook and even Nintendo, because everyone was driven onto their screens. So it's very good for big tech when the outdoors are forbidden and human entertainment and human sociability is forbidden. Well, what's the last big competitor with the screens? The outdoors and the sky, especially the sky. I mean, a beautiful, when I was young, you used to lie on the grass and look at the puffy clouds traverse the sky against a blue sky background, and they were different shapes, and you would get all dreamy, and you could lie there for an hour, or you would watch beautiful, thunderstorms come in, or you would watch sunsets or sunrises, or you would just be outdoors enjoying the beautiful wind, the beautiful air, the beautiful cloudy day, the beautiful sunny day, hiking, playing sports with your workmates or your kids. Well, that's a big competitor to the screens, and it's a competitive advantage, right? Like God's beautiful world and beautiful sky, it is something that even Microsoft can't compete with. Well, just switch it off, dim the sky, turn it off. Those people don't get to see that. And sure enough, when you go outside and you see that endless gray and you feel kind of sick because of all the toxins they're spraying on you, what do? You go indoors and you get on your device. That's what they want. And the last thing I'll say in 1 minute is AI. When I was in India, I went to an AI conference at the India Today conference. People from the belly of the beast, Harvard, Microsoft, were talking about the plans for AI, and they clearly depicted a world, not tomorrow, but week by week now, in which they're anticipating that for every 100 people, workers on a factory floor, in 5 years, there are going to be 15 left. 85 will be unneeded, because AI will be doing their jobs, and maybe there will be one guy to manage the robots. So that's the world they're anticipating and building. And in that world, they don't need us. We are not helpful. We're not useful. We have very little value. They need that 15% of the population basically to do the things robots can't do, or to manage the robots, but they don't need our elderly. They're expensive. They don't need all our kids. They don't want to educate them. They don't need unemployed, that 85% they're anticipating of unemployed, restless, angry people. That's why cannabis got rolled out overnight, and pushed and legalized in state after state right before the pandemic, right? And my conclusion is, and that's why the COVID-19 shot got rolled out right before the rollout of AI. It existed, of course, but they they're rolling these things out sequentially. So our worst scenario is not just what Catherine Austin Fitts calls a control grid of everything monitored digitally. That's not the worst scenario. The worst scenario, what they're planning for, they are clearly trying to kill us. They're trying to kill us off. And our resistance has to be global and worldwide, but knowing that we're fighting for our lives, because they will keep trying to kill us in these, God knows what's in the spraying, right? But people are reporting that crops are not growing, gardens are not growing. But I'm summarizing now with a dramatic drop in successful births in the Czech Republic, the dramatic mortality, 37% difference in mortality with the COVID shots, with geoengineering and with AI, you now have a full picture. That's the world they want, a world in which 85% of us can't exist because there's no use for us. So I don't think they're going to kill us all off. I don't think they're aliens. I think they're just getting ready for a world in which they visualize that they will remain enjoying the fruits of the labor of the robots and the AI and the 15% of us left who are loading things onto crates or communicating with the robots, and everyone else is expendable, and not just expendable, but really in the way. That's my presentation to you tonight. I'm sorry to depress you, but I do think it's important to tell you what I see and to put it all together. Usually I take questions and comments, but I think I better not today because it's Substack Live, so I'm going to keep it on a tight schedule. But listen, I need your help. I keep getting kicked off of X. These videos, it's not just me. I have a whole team that help me research and prepare and do social media and edit. I have to pay for hosting and accountants and lawyers. I'm constantly having to pay for lawyers. And I really can't do it by myself. So please go to Substack, go to Outspoken, Naomi Wolf's Outspoken. Please subscribe. If you become a founding member for $210, I will send you 2 signed books, including the Pfizer papers. You just have to send me your email. And if you have already become a founding member and I haven't sent you your 2 books, please send me your email. Send it to naomi@dailyclout.io. And if you can afford $7 a month, please subscribe, become a paying subscriber. It's $70 a year. It helps me a lot, and it helps my team. It pays for all these good hard workers bringing you this material. And you can go over to Daily Clout, where there's independent reporting, and BillCam, where you can share and see any state or federal bill. We built it for you, but again, it costs money to do that. So subscribe or donate, please. I really need you to help us here. And otherwise, I will see you next Wednesday at 7 or regularly throughout the week at times that we'll announce. Thank you so much. See you soon. And let's fight.